Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. You can't quit. I want you fired. After that, am I the jerk for leaving when my brother announced his girlfriend is pregnant? And after that, entitled Mom goes 5-year-old in front of everyone. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen has to put on a mask. Never! So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. You can't quit. I want you fired. The morning after a good rowdy kickback in our apartment, my roommate and I go to the orange hardware store after noticing some holes in the walls. Roommate goes to find plaster and I go to find the paint. I get to the paint department and I'm looking through the paint swatches to remember what our walls look like. Keep in mind, still very hungover. I pick out a color that's probably the closest, and if not, then I'll just mix my own paint. Art minor. There's no employee at the paint mixing station, so I just put the swatch in my hoodie. To pass the time, I sort the paint swatches properly because mild OCD. Then it comes. Ahem. Here's the cast. Not real names. Employee is George. Manager is Jason. We've got me, and we've got the rude Karen. Karen. I need you to do your darn job and mix me some paint. Me. Stares blankly as hangover is blocking my ability to respond. Karen. Hello, I'm talking to you. Mix my paint. Fortunately, my brain finally decides to turn on again. Me. I don't work here. Gets cut off by Karen. Don't you lie to me. I saw you sorting the color wall poorly. Only a lazy employee would do that sort of thing. Me. Ma'am, I'm gonna be honest. I'm really hungover, and your screeching is making me want to puke. That statement went as well as you would expect. You're a terrible worker, and a terrible person for saying that. I'm going to get your manager and have you fired. Storms off stage left. Once the banshee left, I hear chuckling from down the aisle behind me. Lo and behold, my roommate listened to most of it and is laughing his butt off. He asked if I got the paint, and I explained the first part of the confrontation. We decided to wait for the manager because maybe he'll mix our paint before we are kicked out. We wait a few more minutes and George walks up, oblivious to what just transpired, and starts mixing our paint. Enter stage left, Karen with a very annoyed manager on her heels. Karen, that's the one that called me an orangutan jerk, and he needs to be fired right now. Pointing at me. Jason, George, I'm frankly surprised you'd say such a nasty thing. George, what now? Karen, not him, the scrawny one in a hoodie. He even told me he is drunk. Jason looks at me and looks confused. Ma'am, he doesn't work here, but I can ask him to leave for insulting you. Karen, no, he definitely works here. I saw him working. Me, okay then, I quit. Karen, you can't quit. I want you fired. By now, our paint is done mixing, and I ask George if he'd like to escort us to the front. I've never seen a morning shift employee brighten up so fast. Karen is belligerent, and the manager tries to calm her down with coupons. My roommate, George, and I leave paint as fast as possible and can still hear the screeching from the cashier's stand. We pay, and George walks us to the car. I explain what really happened, and he laughs and says he'll tell Jason the situation. Initially, my roommate and I were gonna go straight home, but we had to see the outcome of this, so George agreed he'd come back out once the orangutan jerk was gone. The police ended up having to be called just to escort her out, but she was not arrested. Jason and George came out to the car, and as George had already explained what happened, Jason profusely apologized. We laughed it off, and I said something along the lines of, it was worth getting out of bed for despite the hangover. Jason gave us free membership perks, and the next time we came in, we were so kindly informed that Karen had come back later that day and vandalized some of the yard equipment always on display, and she was arrested. Serves the orangutan jerk right. Am I the jerk for leaving when my brother announced his girlfriend is pregnant? My brother and I do not get on. When we were younger, he'd go out of his way to make my life a living heck. To my parents' credit, they did tell him off for it when they caught him, but they both worked long hours and didn't have the energy to deal with our arguments. This continued into adulthood. He was salty that he failed college courses the first time around. There was a bad argument in our family a while ago, and I kid you not, it all started because I refused to decorate my brother's living room. I won't go into too much detail, but he wanted a pretty hefty discount. I said no, and he threw a tantrum. You really need to meet my brother to understand just how bad he is, but hopefully this post will do it some justice. Instead of being a grown-up and talking to me, he decided to hook up with my toxic ex-girlfriend and the mother of my kid. Due to the rules here, I can't go into a lot of detail about what she was like, but she was not a nice person. She never really bonded with our son when he was born, and I was left to do everything by myself. She eventually walked out on us and refused to have any contact with our son. She'll post on Facebook now and then about her beautiful baby boy to get sympathy votes, but that's about it. I've been a single dad for almost 3 years now, and I absolutely adore my son, but it hurts to think that one day he might question why his mom didn't want anything to do with him. How am I supposed to explain that to him? Anyway, it bothered me when my brother told me they had hooked up together. It hurt even more when he started dating her. It had taken me so long to get over what she did to me and my kid, and now my own brother was bringing her back into my life. Yesterday, we had a family video call. Parents are high risk, and we're not taking any chances, when my brother decided to announce that he and my ex were expecting. I just froze. I didn't know what to do or think. I could feel myself starting to cry a little bit, and it got a bit harder to breathe. Eventually, I decided to just congratulate them and then made up some lie about needing to put my son down for a nap and left. I received a bunch of messages from my brother and his girlfriend telling me that I stole their thunder. After I left, my parents and some other family members started worrying if I was okay and not really focusing on their news. My uncle told me that I should have just been a man and stuck it out instead of making excuses to get out of it. After all, it was expected that our kids would be raised around each other. I feel like maybe I shouldn't have left the call, but at the same time, it would have been worse if I'd stayed and had a full-blown panic attack in front of everyone. Some of the family members are split and have argued that I won't be able to avoid my brother and his family forever, but others believe I was in the right to leave the situation. I don't know what to think. Edit. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the support. I fell asleep last night and woke up to so many kind and supportive comments. A lot of people have been asking how my parents feel about this. They aren't happy, but they don't have the energy to deal with all the hassle my brother would cause. They actually cut him off for a little while he had started dating my ex, but he phoned them constantly and, again, can't go into too much detail, but he said he'd do something not so good. They keep him at arm's length, but I have told them not to cut contact because of me. If they want to cut contact on their own accord, then that's fine, but I do not want to be the reason that they have to deal with his tantrums. The rest of the family, for the most part, weren't happy about it but accepted it, or pretended to, when they started getting a bit more serious. My uncle, who had told me to be a man, thought it was funny. That's the kind of person he is. I think as hard as it might be, I'm going to cut off contact with my brother and ex. As a lot of people have pointed out, not for my sake, but for the sake of my son. I don't want to put him through all that. Sorry I can't reply to all your comments, but I've been trying to read them all. Thanks again, Reddit. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you cut contact with them or not? Please let us know. Entitled Mom goes 5-year-old in front of everyone. I work for a large US airline, and it was a couple weeks before Christmas, so it's crazy with thousands of people in the terminal. I'm working the gate for a flight to LAX, and everyone is boarded with the exception of an unaccompanied minor. When they came, the parents had to accompany the kid at all times until we take them on the aircraft. They're supposed to board first so we can get the kid settled in and explain what is going to happen. Now, I know for a fact that the parents checked in over 2 hours before the flight departed, so tons of time. Well, I see that they aren't here, so I make a terminal page and go out of my way and even call the number listed. Nothing. Okay, close the flight so it can go to its destination. While the flight is getting ready to leave, I'm doing my paperwork and a woman walks up and says, "We're here." Keep in mind, there is only one adult woman. I tell her that the flight is closed and is leaving. Entitled Mom. No, it's not. She's not on it yet. Me. I'm sorry, but it's too late, and we can rebook it for tomorrow. No, it's not supposed to leave until 7:35 p.m. Me. Yes, it's 7:37, and the gate closes 10 minutes early. 7:35 is when it leaves the gate. Entitled Mom. Well, call it back. She has to be on that flight. At this time, I smell the alcohol on her breath. Me. I'm sorry. We held it as long as possible, and it had to leave. I'll be happy to book it for you tomorrow. I now see sheer anger flowing on her face. She turns around, takes 5 steps to the hallway in front of everyone, drops to her knees, and screams at the top of her lungs, holding her hands in the air. Total Platoon movie movement. Everyone is looking at her now. I'm documenting what she is doing to cover our rear ends, fully knowing this is normal behavior for LAX. At this time, her wife and the kids shows up and she throws me under the bus. Entitled Mom, she won't let you on the aircraft to see your grandma. At this time, the kid is crying and the original mother is just laying into me, calling me every name under the sun. Entitled Mom, I hope you feel good that you're not letting her go to Disney now. Me, I'm sorry, but you were here over 2 hours ago. We told you that she's boarded first and when boarding started. Would you like me to rebook for tomorrow? Other mom kicks in. Please do that for tomorrow. And what time is it? Me, same time. I give them all the usual stuff they need and tell them to do the same process they did today and send them on their way. Next day, I'm at the gate in plain clothes as I'm taking the trip today. I see the same entitled mom come to the gate counter and demanded to know who her daughter is going to be sitting next to. The agents say we're not allowed to give that out, but she wouldn't hear that. Me, I finally step up and say, she's sitting next to me, right by the other flight attendants so we can watch them. We have specific places for minors for this reason. She realizes that she's not going to get anywhere, so the kid boards. The rest of the flight gets on, I get upgraded to first class, and all is well. We arrive in LAX, and I see the grandmother there to pick up the kid and apologize to her for being a day late and hope that it doesn't ruin her Disney vacation. She's all happy and says, oh, it's all good. We aren't going till the following day. It was going to be grandparents' bonding time. Thanks me for being concerned, and off she goes. Speaking of Disneyland, have you ever been to Disneyland, or how about Disney World? Please let us know. I prefer Universal Studios, to be honest. Am I the jerk for leaving my husband in the grocery store because he started acting like a toddler? We all go through phases and pick up annoying habits, and sometimes we just need our loved ones to gently tell us if we picked up a particularly egregious habit. Sometime in the last year, my husband has picked up a habit where he talks like a baby. At first it was funny, but passed into embarrassing, cringeworthy behavior quickly. Examples: doggo, pupper, woofer, pibble, hootie boy, peepo, burp, etc. I cannot emphasize this enough. It is not endearing or attractive to have my husband talk like this. Just before lockdown hit, we were out at a restaurant with some friends. He actually ordered a Chicky Sammy. Like, said that exact phrase, Chicky Sammy. Look, it's totally fine that he ordered a chicken sandwich. That's not the issue. Our friends noticed the baby talk because he insisted on continuing the joke and even started talking with this god-awful toddler accent. After that, I just couldn't stomach the idea of going out with him to adult places. I'd go out to the brewery with friends, but God forbid he join me and say, "Me want another beer," or something. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why he's doing this. I finally hit my limit when we were grocery shopping and everything seemed normal and fine until he gasped like a kid, ran to the ice cream section and jumped up and down yelling, ice cream, I want chocolate." I was mortified. People were staring at him and me. He kept going and kept saying, "Can we get popsicles?" And I just said, "Either talk to me like an adult or I'm leaving." He started saying, "Oh, you must be fun at parties," and "Lighten up, will you?" and crap like that. I just said forget it and left the store, leaving him to walk home. Like a mile, it was fine, because I couldn't even look at him. Since then, things have been very tense, and he keeps telling me that he wants an apology for embarrassing him by leaving him in the store. I told him that people don't get to demand apologies. If someone wants to apologize, it's up to them, and I am absolutely not going to apologize for saving myself the embarrassment of a 35-year-old man with a mortgage and retirement account asking for chocolate ice cream. He got his mom involved, no joke. She keeps telling me it's just a phase and that he's probably bored, and I should be happy this is his midlife crisis rather than him hooking up with 19-year-olds at the local bar. I'm going crazy. Am I the jerk? Do I really just need to let my husband continuously embarrass me like this? Edit. Sorry, there was only so much space. I have talked to him multiple times. Info. Does he have a job? Yes, and he acts completely normal as far as I know. He worked from home for a while during lockdown, and I never heard him talk like this to anyone he worked with. Does he do it with friends? Sometimes, and it's generally meant to annoy them or gross them out, but he stops. He has friends where they think it's cute to embarrass each other. Has he seen a doctor? No, but I've asked him if he needed to talk to someone because he was acting strange and he accused me of being stuck up and judgmental. Is it a tumor? I don't know. Like I said above, I asked him if he needed to see someone. I can't force him, even if I want to, just find out there's any way you can salvage this. But after this post closes, I will try to get him to. Maybe his sister can encourage him, even though he acts completely normal around them. Does he have childhood trauma? As far as I know, and I'm relatively close to his family and would likely know, the worst thing he had happen was a minor car accident when he was around 13. No injuries, etc. He hasn't been in a car accident in the past 2 years or anything like that, and I haven't, and as far as I know, no one else in his family has been, etc. Well, what would you do in this situation? Please let us know. Can't blame him for wanting that chocolate ice cream. That stuff's good. Then it all went quiet. Back in my university days, we had a long summer holiday, and in the UK, most students got a job to top up their bank accounts for the next year's studying. At the end of my second year studying chemistry, I got a job as a quality controller in a food factory. Now, the one thing I really learned from that job was the foods to avoid. Did you know one of the ingredients in canned tomato soup is concentrated hydrochloric acid? Anyway, I was significantly more qualified in chemistry than the quality supervisor, and after I pointed out some problems in the way they were carrying out some of the tests in the lab, I was put into the cannery where I was told to check the seams on the cans after they were lidded, the vacuum in cans after they were lidded, and also that the check weigher was working correctly. It was the check weigher where things got interesting. If the volume of products in each can was too high, then the cans could burst during cooking. If it was too low, then the company could be fined for underweight products. I was shown how to check and also adjust the volumes going into each can. It really wasn't difficult. One day I was watching the production and canning of chicken soup and noticed the line was running just a little light. Not below, but just on the lower compliance level. So I adjusted the machine to add just a little more soup to the cans. This brought it up to almost the exact weight expected per can. Things ran really smoothly from that point onwards until we got to the end of the run. There was a flurry of activity in the cannery supervisor's office and much pointing at paperwork. It seems the cannery had produced around 100 cans less than it was expected from the run. Cue the investigation. Turns out that by stopping the line running light and adhering to the can labeling of the weight inside the can, I had cost them 100 cans of soup. I was told under no circumstances should I make any adjustments to any production line, and I must find a supervisor. Fine, I was only there as a temp after all. Everything was good for a week or so, and then came the mushroom soup run. Once again, the line was running as close to the minimum as they could, and then I noticed cans coming through the check weight underweight. I told the guy running the line, and he said to adjust it then. This is where malicious compliance comes in. No, I can't adjust it. But also, as I'm responsible for quality control, I can't let this run underweight. Cue pressing the big red button stopping the canning line. Canneries are noisy places. There are conveyors running all the time, cans clattering against each other, and then into the baskets that they're cooked in at the end. All of this stopped, and I had the entire room standing wondering what to do. I asked one of the line staff to go and find a supervisor to make the adjustment, and I waited. We waited for almost an hour to find someone, by which time the soup that needed to be canned had got cold and couldn't be pumped through the canning machines and had to be dumped. The supervisor arrived and went ballistic, dragging me into the factory manager's office. He told the story of the lost 100 cans and how I had now cost them a whole batch of mushroom soup. The manager started shouting at me and then came out with a gem of a statement. "I can't see you having a career in this industry. You need to think about your options." My response was quite blunt, I'm afraid. Clearly, your margins are dependent on being as close to a can of soup being underweight as possible. I understand that and sought only to protect you from possible litigation under consumer legislation. I was told I was not to do that and find a supervisor to make any changes. In the absence of this chap for over an hour, I was faced with two options. Either halt production or allow underweight cans to leave the cannery. My career options are not guided by my temporary summer holiday job, and I aspire to something more fulfilling. As I will be returning to university in a few weeks, I'm going to get changed, and you can sort out someone else to check your cannery production. Bye. Am I the jerk for refusing to accommodate my husband's sister and her family by making a separate meal for them? My husband's sister's youngest kid was diagnosed with cancer shortly after birth. She and her husband have spent 2 years fighting for him and his health. Then lockdown hit, and what was already a very bad financial and emotional situation became worse. In September, they were forced to leave their home due to a mold issue that may or may not have been there a while, but went unnoticed because of how difficult the last couple of years have been on them. Then her husband's office was closed down, and all employees were forced to move to the one in our town, 3 hours from where they lived before, or find another job. which they did not feel safe doing so in the current climate with their family circumstances. My husband and I discussed it and agreed to let them move in until after Christmas, when hopefully the mold issue could be fixed and they could start the process to sell up and find another place. So I will start by saying they pay for some groceries and help towards bills, but not a lot because of their financial situation. I started having an issue 2 weeks after they moved in. It was agreed upon by all 4 of us that I would make dinner and we would each do our own things for lunch. But she and their older kids started complaining about dinner, wanting something else, and expecting me to make it for them. It got to the point the other night where my husband's sister asked me to make a lasagna for them in front of all the kids. Both our husbands were at work, and her kids started to demand it, where I lost it and told her if she didn't want to eat what I prepared, then the least she could do is make it herself, because it's not easy cooking enough for 9 people and then having 3 people reject it outright and often rudely, and expecting me to cook something specific for them. It's even worse because the kids have made a fuss about dinner a lot since they got here, and she says nothing to them, and she isn't too far behind in that, but at least she normally expresses it in a less demanding nature and has never pressed it in front of the kids before. I've struggled with some guilt because they have a lot going on, and I maybe should have just sucked it up. I can't always coordinate in advance about what they want for dinner, but also we don't always have what's needed to make what they want anyway, and I'm already getting more groceries and doing more than I was before. I'm trying to be understanding, but I worry I was the jerk. Things have been tense since. The complaints have not stopped though. Am I the jerk? An update kind of. So my husband and his sister's husband are mad at my sister-in-law. She does not want to participate in cooking. She also doesn't think it's fair to expect them to know what they'll want days or weeks in advance. Her husband has promised his kids will behave better in the future, but sister-in-law doesn't think they were ever rude. She said I was rude for not catering more to them as guests in our home and people going through a rough time. So I don't know what we're going to do, but at least I know where I stand in this. Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister-in-law? Please let us know.
I wouldn't be cooking anything for those entitled jerks. Tell your sister-in-law if they want to be that picky, they can buy and make their own food.
Restaurant profited off of my tips. I was working as a server at a family-owned restaurant in college. I had been serving for a couple years at this restaurant and knew the ins and outs of the place very well, at least until they hired a new assistant manager. This guy was wild and unpredictable. He would make decisions to do over staff just for the fun of it. On a particularly busy night, I was overloaded with tables. One group had asked for an extra side of rice after I had brought out their meals. No problem. I went to our computer and put in the order. I got distracted at that moment by another guest and totally forgot to go get the rice. Extra sides were gotten by servers, not kitchen staff. A while later, I bring the ticket to the table who had asked for the extra rice. They mentioned the forgotten side and I felt terrible, but they couldn't have been nicer about it. All they asked is that I take the $1.50 charge for extra rice off, which of course I was happy to do so. Unfortunately, to remove any charges from a ticket, you need a manager. So I go get the new manager, explain the situation, and ask him to remove the rice. He does, and then tells me to go put $1.50 into the cash drawer since it's my fault that I forgot the rice. Keep in mind, I never even put any rice on a plate, so the restaurant is losing exactly $0 by removing this charge. I thought he was joking, so I left and forgot about it. At the end of the night, I went to the new manager to get my tips for the night. At this restaurant, we got all of our tips, even the ones from credit cards, handed to us in cash at the end of the shift. I counted, but I'm $1.50 short. Thinking he miscounted, I ask him for the $1.50, and he says, "You didn't give that table rice, so that loss comes from your tips." I explain again that there is no loss because I never even went to get the rice. He doesn't care. I never see that $1.50 even after complaining to the GM and the owners. If you've stuck around this long, thanks, and sorry for a long story. I realize it's only $1.50, but what if it had been a pricey, upwards of $15 cocktail? It's really the principle of it that irks me so much. This was the last straw on top of a lot of issues of that place, and I immediately started looking for other jobs. I left about a month later. Am I the jerk for telling my sister and parents that she can never live with me? To start with, I, 26 female, have never had a good relationship with my sister, 32 female. She didn't like having a younger sibling and had no interest in me. She moved out when she was 18 and ceased any contact with me, even going as far as rubbing it in my face how she never wanted to know me by showing up for Christmas at grandparents' houses and bringing gifts for our cousins but not me, and by showing up for their birthdays but not mine. The last time I was anyway hopeful for us to have a relationship was at our youngest cousin's first birthday party when I was 15. She brought along her friends and was mocking me for trying to talk to her when I saw her earlier at the party. So I hardened toward her that day and decided if she didn't want to be my sister, then I would just need to accept that and move on from her. She got married when I was 17 and told our parents I was not welcome. Our parents tried to change her mind, but she was not having it. I thought that was when they realized there was no way we were going to be buddies someday or even real family. And now they expect me to help her out. She got divorced from her husband 4 years ago. He got into a lot of debt and then bailed. They have a 7-year-old together. She lost her job recently and she got a new job in my city. And then the rental she had planned to move into fell through and she ended up asking me to stay. I told her no. She went to our parents and the three put pressure on me. When I stood by my stance, they paid for her to stay in a hotel for a while. She has not been able to secure a place and apparently lost the job due to a lack of actual address. They are all saying I turned my back on her and we should help family. I got really frustrated with all of them, but especially my parents. She has never wanted a single thing to do with me. She has purposely gone out of her way to hurt my feelings and make it clear I am nothing to her. But I'm supposed to help her out because she's a struggling single mom? After everything? With no apology or actual sign that she doesn't feel the same about me? Where my guilt is coming in to ask this is she has a daughter and I feel bad for her. But her daughter is also a stranger to me. I have never been part of her life and I don't even know if she knows who I am. But still, she's a kid, and as a mom now, I'm wondering if I'm being a total jerk here like they seem to believe. Am I the jerk? Edit. Fix the typo about her being the younger sibling. It's that she didn't like having one. Also, want to add, because it keeps coming up, that more could have happened before I was born in the early years that I'm not aware of. But all I've ever been told is she reacted negatively to having a sibling, and that's all I've ever known from her. I can't say I know of anything that could have caused it. Well, what do you think? Should OP let her sister stay with her or not? Please let us know.
No, this is called karma, and it's a beautiful thing.
Am I the jerk for telling my mother that my husband is not her replacement son? My parents have 2 kids, me, female 26, and my brother Dan, male 34. Dan had a rough time growing up, and frankly, my parents failed him. As a teenager, he struggled with severe addiction and mental illness, and they did almost nothing to help him. By the time he was done with college, he had completely cut off my parents. To this day, Dan and my parents are still estranged. I, on the other hand, still speak to my brother regularly. My parents, especially my mom, take every chance they can to mourn the loss of their son and act as though my brother wronged them by leaving. Dan has told me he wouldn't mind reconnecting with them, but only if they reach out and apologize first. I've encouraged my parents to do this, but they insist that he betrayed them. I got married early last year to my husband, Jeff. We have a happy marriage, and he is adored by all my friends and family. But I feel like my parents have been crossing some boundaries. For example, whenever we've gone to visit them, they insist that he sleep in Dan's room, saying that their son, my husband, has come home and should sleep in his rightful bedroom. Before the lockdown, my dad would take Jeff out to sporting events and introduce him as his only son. Most of the pictures of my brother in my childhood room have been replaced by pictures of my parents with Jeff. The other day, my mom called to invite me and Jeff over for the holidays. I told her I wasn't comfortable traveling during what's going on. She was irritated but dropped it. Then she called Jeff and begged him to visit without me because apparently,
it's cruel for a mother to be without her kid on Christmas.
Jeff politely told her he wasn't going to visit without me. She's been emotionally blackmailing him ever since, sending him pictures of stockings with his, my mom's, and my dad's name on them and saying,
"But we already promised so-and-so that our son will be in town."
This felt ridiculous and unsettling, so I called her up yesterday and explained to her that she's violating our boundaries. Jeff is not her replacement son, and no matter how much she pretends she doesn't have an actual son, she does, and it's her responsibility to make up for the damage she did to that relationship before it's too late. She started crying and called me cruel for mentioning Dan and said I have no idea what it's like to be a mother, and it's disgusting that I'm trying to deprive her of a son when she has already lost one by keeping Jeff away from her. My father agrees with my mother and Jeff agrees with me, though he doesn't like to rock the boat and thinks I should apologize anyway. I thought I did the right thing, but now I'm really not sure if I went too far. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thank you for all the support and advice. I really appreciate it. I haven't been able to sleep, so I've been reading every comment. I don't know if I have the emotional energy to post in Just No Mother-in-Law yet, but I'm reading a lot of what's posted there and already feel less alone. My tentative plan is to arrange for me and Jeff to get individual therapy and maybe couples therapy later on, We're going to North Carolina with my parents for a while. I'm also planning to invite Dan to stay with us over the holidays. I have a lot to make up for, and I want to spend as much time as I can with him and let him know he's loved. You probably haven't seen this video before, so please come watch it next and we'll see you when you get there.
And if you join as a channel member today, I'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make any kind of special video you'd like us to, just come visit us on Fiverr. Link pinned in the comments below.